We welcome back Tsepo Khadima, a political analyst, and Zamo Madlala is a spokesperson for the Black Empowerment Foundation. Good evening to you. Adil Nchabeleng, Transform RSA president, and we have Michael Dur, who is the South African Reserve Bank shareholder, joining us live via Skype. Good evening, gentlemen, and thanks for joining us. Mr. Dur, let's just start with you. Last we spoke about the remedial action that the Public Protector proposed in expanding the mandate of the Reserve Bank, not necessarily changing its focus or mandate. You thought that this was a good idea. What do you make of the latest developments now with the applicants wanting to have this overturned?
I'm sorry, we have a little bit of a time delay. Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you fine. Did you hear my question?
I heard your question, yeah. I listened to the Standing Committee on Finance today and the remarks which the governor made for over half an hour about the share ownership and shareholders. And I also had a talk to the Public Protector's Office today about the remedial action and the next plans. And they will uphold the ABSA repayment schedule, which they expect in the next few months, latest by December, and that one they will fiercely defend so far.
No, but I'm going back to the last time when we spoke. You thought that the remedial action was actually a good idea to expand the mandate of the Reserve Bank. Do you feel any differently based on today's developments?
It was interesting in the discussion today that the governor said that actually the ownership discussion was between the DA, between David Meunier and between Floyd Shivambu of the EFF. And the outcome was that it's actually very costly. The Lesetja, the governor said it can be very costly to get rid of the shareholders. And he also got the advice from the Bank for International Settlement in Bale that you will have to pay them in order to get them to go away. That was actually the advice from the Bank for International Settlement. And
just stay on the line, Mr. Dredd. As you said, he's based in Germany, so we're having a bit of difficulty connecting. I mean, we hear now people calling for the head of the Public Protector, whether she should be recalled from her position. I'll start with you, Mr. Madlala, and what you make out of all these developments.
Okay, when it actually comes, thank you for the opportunity. When it comes to the Public Protector and the legalese on whether her recommendation was legal or not, I think we all know and can appreciate that the Constitution to be amended, you need 2/3 majority in Parliament. Wow. That whole long story we all know. But the real conversation should come back around the whole mandate of the Reserve Bank. That is the Reserve Bank mandate actually correct, and does it serve the people? And we found it to be rather disingenuous for the governor today to come and lay out that inflation targeting is a tool that benefits the disadvantaged and the poor. I mean, it's quite ridiculous. I don't see how inflation targeting on its own can derive the said benefit, because all he controls are interest rates, and it's only bondholders who really benefit from that. So the general South African public doesn't really benefit. The Reserve Bank is the sole issuer of banking licenses in this country, and therefore what you find is that there's a small cabal which controls the South African Reserve Bank, and so therefore you find that constantly the barometer for you entering the sector and the barriers are constantly being picked up, and that's what the banks do. And that is why, since '94, how many banks have you had issued?
Yeah, but I mean, she's now a soft target, or, but some would say even a walkover. We've seen the higher echelon of power in the financial structure coming out at the remedial action. And as Zama's saying, there's merit in what she had argued, in the sense that it needs to be expanded to really impact the greater society as opposed to the interests of a few. Adil?
Look, thank you so much for the opportunity. I think this whole issue is completely misplaced. The issue of the mandate relating to the Reserve Bank, according to the Public Protector's actual remedial action, should have been implemented. One. The fact that now there is actually clarity being sought as to whether they should implement it or not shows the disingenuousness with regards to South African as respects to lawmaking. First of all, the Constitutional Court has already ruled that whatever the Public Protector's Office, we're not talking about Mkhwebane, we're talking about the Public Protector's Office, proclaims and actually declares should be followed and be implemented. With regards to the current Reserve Bank, the Reserve Bank has failed, first of all, in many instances. One, to keep price stability, which is the consumer price and inflation, to keep in terms of currency flotation. They have failed. We are sitting with a currency that is continuously hammering and has been taking a lot of beating. They have not contained the currency in terms of management of the currency and the money supply. We are sitting with an economy that is currently in the worst condition it could have ever been, not because South Africa's economic projection does not say we can grow, because the money supply has been actually withheld. The people who hold the power in this case is within the Reserve Bank and the banks that are actually banking for South Africa's economy.
But what we're sitting with now is the legality of whether Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane and the Public Protector's Office can defend the remedial actions. She herself had very quickly divorced herself from it. There was all sorts of issues in that it's a misinterpretation or there was ambiguity. So where do we sit now? Is it likely to be reversed or set aside? And if that's the case, what does that mean for the powers of the Public Protector as it was established in the Nkandla matter?
The powers of the Public Protector are now cast in stone and iron. The Constitutional Court for the next 100 years, it's not possible to go and do anything with the powers of the Public Protector other than what they have decreed. And that's just really what we have to live with. It was very interesting to hear the counsel for ABSA, Marcus, SC, Gilbert Marcus, who was arguing in a particular sense of, say, well, these are recommendations taken from the statute, which is the Public Protector Act of 1993. And I think that he was really off the mark. The Constitutional Court settled it. Whether we like it or not, that's another issue. But here is the issue. Either way, the Public Protector could have said, listen, the remedy is found within the Constitution, or the remedy could be through legislative amendment of the Reserve Bank Act. Either way, somebody had to be instructed to initiate that process because they themselves, by their own accord, they failed to foresee the real circumstances that we are in, and that it now necessitates the expansion of the mandate of the Reserve Bank beyond what is there. And even Lesetja Kganya himself today, in his testimony in Parliament, does concede that, by the way, the functions of the Reserve Bank, the scope, goes beyond what is contained in Section 224 of the Constitution. So that admission on its very own, I cannot see how he can hold cause to say, well, he will protect it. Now, talking about protecting the currency, completely is a failure, is an utter failure in protecting the currency. In 1980, the rand or the US dollar was $2 to 1 rand. Yeah. There's a key reason on why that was the case. We had 3,000 tons of gold. So today we have a South African Reserve Bank that is only South African in name only and reserve in name only. The South African Reserve Bank is no longer the lender of last resort. Hence, the viewers at home would have seen even some article coming out of written by a professor from University of Western Cape, of Cape Town rather, saying that it's about time that South Africa must go to the IMF, because IMF is the one with a stronger balance sheet. The South African Reserve Bank's balance sheet is completely depleted. They are no longer the lender of last resort. They have got zero control on money supply. So the question is that, well, who's managing the monetary policy of this country?
Okay, but by extending the mandate, then how, if you're already saying that internally they've got their own issues, or rather technically bankrupt, how then will they fulfill the socio-economic needs of this country? If we go with Dr.
The legislative amendment is effectively the remedy that you need, where first and foremost, their mandate can include, amongst other things, really having full control on money supply, and of course, amongst other things, then increasing the number of players in the banking sector. That also, when they work on what they call the fractional reserve banking system, which is an international principle, then we can be able to have a new credit for production being introduced. Right now, we don't have that. And the net result, by the way, of that, we now, as the Padile Hota yesterday was telling us, more and more people are singing Chico Twala's song, I'm a poor man who needs some money. I'm a poor man who needs a job. Is that the situation that you want?
Poor man. No, but it makes
Cynthia, I think just to add on that, right, we must understand, most people do not take the effort to understand. What is at stake here is not the emotions of either the Reserve Bank governor or the people who feel very strongly contended that we should leave the Reserve Bank as it is. If you understand what the Reserve Bank's role is, according to the Constitution, it is to make sure that the South African's monetary policy is continuously managed, made sure that there is upward performance, and that there is money supply in the economy. So what is so wrong in widening the scope to include growth, as well as ensure that there is an element of transformation and that the Reserve Bank serves the interest of our people, which is one, the production of money. All reserve banks across the world create money from nothing. It is not an unknown fact, by the way. So why can't the South African Reserve Bank start exercising its proper powers and mandated powers? We've got the resources, by the way. When they say the Reserve Bank, it means that it is actually supposedly to be given its essence on the currency's reserves. One can be currency, one can be resources, one can be minerals, one can be trade, as well as import and export based trade. So those kind of reserves, currently we're not talking about that. Instead, we're talking about a shifting goal by which actually, if the judge, which is Judge John Murphy, a very brilliant judge, if he were to actually take this matter into serious consideration, he would, in his power, allow the public protector the opportunity to exercise the mandate of the public protector's office and saying, let us widen the horizon of what the Reserve Bank should do. Right now, it's not doing its job.
Exactly. I mean, since 1996, the Constitution has been amended, 19 times?
17 times plus.
17 times plus. So why is it that the Reserve Bank, there has been such a backlash, and it's become very personal, you know, questioning the caliber of Busisiwe Mkhwebane's leadership, her qualifications. You know, you'll read that she even made a typo in her application for the job to the portfolio committee. That aside, I'm just saying in terms of the powers, when she says these are recommendations, my remedial action is that look at
she was right within her rights.
Reform within that space.
Yeah, she is right within her rights, actually, to widen the scope of the Reserve Bank. It is created. Remember, it is a creature of the Constitution. So within the South African Constitution, we can then really decide in saying, how do we perceive the South Africans' growth and economic trajectory? And what is the engine to achieve that? It is through the South African Reserve Bank. In America, they did it throughout the 2007 economic collapse. It was through the Federal Reserve System that they actually injected more money. Government issued out bonds, which is actually debt taken against the people. And then they said this money will be injected back into the banks in order to make the country fully functional and operate after the economic collapse. South Africa is not even facing that dire situation. We are saying that the widening and the broadening up of the South African Reserve Bank scope should take into consideration that we are going into a far much more stricter phase of our growth and trajectory, which is radical economic transformation. There is requirement for capital and serious money to be put into our economy so that we can build the necessary infrastructure. We can put together the necessary loans as well as bonds required, and people can access credit for transaction as well as for trading, as well as for buying homes, cars, and everything that is required within our economy. What is so wrong in that?
Yeah, you're saying that Advocate Mkhwebane also became unpopular because of the decisions. You know, number one, pursuing the ABSA apartheid loan repayment, and also now where the respondent was saying that she has violated the separation of power principle.
Perhaps let's move away from public protector and let's look at somebody that perhaps would be deemed more what shall we say, more credible and acceptable. President Mbeki, former President Mbeki, just a couple of weeks ago was saying that someone was asking him why had South African businesses maintained such high liquidity, which was unnecessary. Which means we all know that the reality is that businesses are holding cash and not reinvesting into the economy. So how are you going to find growth? When the Reserve Bank governor comes and says he's trying to target inflation and all of that, Eskom right now is asking for a 20% increase. How's that? How does his inflation targeting ever have any positive effect? You look at the Competition Commission right now, on the list of inquiries, there's banking, healthcare, LPG, passenger transport, and retail market. Those are the investigations underway now. Those are the things that impact on the poor. Not the Reserve Bank governor telling us that through targeting inflation, through the repo rate, he can therefore control inflation. That's just disingenuous.
Yeah.
You know, Zamo, let me just add on that. Zamo, half of these people really don't have a clue what they're doing, Cindy. We are lied to on a daily basis. The Reserve Bank has failed in applying its own mandate. The current, in terms of pricing on commodities, the supply, the money supply in South Africa is at its worst it's ever been. We are currently having over 160 trillion, by the way. 1.6 trillion, not 160, 1.6 trillion circulating in currency in South African terms today. In 2011, there was only 800 billion rands in the economy circulating as currency. So over the last 5 to 7 years, there's been a double increase of money supply. And yet that money is not coming into the hands of the people. It's moving somewhere, but it's not moving in currency where it is needed in order to stimulate the economy and grow the necessary sectors that are required. So the question should be asked, what is the genuineness of the people looking after the mandate of the South African Reserve Bank? At this stage, Lesetja Kganyago is a wonderful individual governor, but really serving the mandate of South African needs for the constitutional mandate given to the Reserve Bank. They are failing as a team. They have not even understood the fundamentals. If you understand how, by the way, the meetings are held in terms of deciding on the repo rate and how to actually give the interest rates and everything. This is a 3-hour or 4-hour meeting. And in that 4 or 5 hours meeting, the discussions, then the emergence out of it is we are going to either cut or we are going to maintain the repo rate as it is, and then that is based on that. Do we have really astute financial regulatory people involved? No. So there are many issues that must be asked about the role of the Reserve Bank.
Yeah, we'll get a response from Mr. Khadima here. Michael Durr is still with us. He's a Reserve Bank shareholder. Mr. Durr, how would your life or livelihood be impacted if the South African Reserve Bank, as you reside in Germany, were to expand its mandate to benefit those that are not necessarily shareholders or let alone even employed in this country?
I'm very astounded and very happy for the discussion and for the state of discussion we reached with the SARB. We had as shareholders now like an 8 or 10-year uphill struggle to get the whole Reserve Bank issue out to the public, and I'm very happy that people are talking about fractional reserve banking. And the Friday AGM last Friday, there was a question about the Chicago plan, which is full reserve banking or 100% minimum reserve requirement, which will be in the minutes of the Reserve Bank AGM, which also the governor responded to. I made my plan to the president, to the Honorable President Zuma in 2009 about my just money system, which is based on 100% minimum reserve requirement. Therefore, we are very far in the discussion. I'm very happy. And I think that the statement which the governor today in the Standing Committee on Finance made about that the SARB is in the spotlight for the wrong reasons is actually the SARB is in the spotlight for the right reasons, because now we flushed it out that the private shareholders are an anomaly, which also the economic transformation policy decision was the outcome just a few weeks ago. And we got the nationalization debate going, which actually is a big impact now to think about what is the Reserve Bank, what does it contribute, and actually it's important that the mandate gets widened and is also, as I said in my last interview with you guys, I support the public protector with her input about the widening of the mandate, because I think that socioeconomic well-being is good, and we as the shareholders and the owners of the company of the Reserve Bank don't have anything against it, because we are anyway limited in our rights, which is partly due to creeping expropriation over the decades. But I mean, that's another issue which we can't raise here now.
All right, but just looking at the mandate as it stands now and how the remedial actions may now lead to further economic instability or even volatility in the currency, do you buy that?
I think that the governor in today's parliamentary briefing made it very clear about what the important issues are for the mandate. They're very stuck in the old school, and they don't want to open up. But the chair, Yunus Karim, actually made it very clear in the 1.5 hours today that the committee will actually make some suggestions, which actually I think will help the public protectors push. And let's see what's coming out in the next few weeks. It's definitely an interesting debate which got started now.
All right, Michael Doro, he is a Reserve Bank shareholder speaking to us via Skype. He's live in Germany. We'll just wrap it up very quickly, Tsepo, just going forward, because I know there's a knee-jerk reaction depending on what is in the public discourse, you know, in the credibility of the Public Protector's Office. Some saying that if you left a vacancy and everybody misses your predecessor, there's something wrong with that picture. But your views on this matter going forward?
Look, very simply, monetary policy is central to macroeconomic policy of any nation, and therefore the role of the Reserve Bank needs to be expanded because it's that very much important. But if we were to look at the history, certainly the tools that they've been using are inappropriate and ineffective. That is inflation targeting as well as the interest rates as the tool to then reduce inflation. By the way, we have to bear in mind that in terms of food inflation, that is well over above 10%. So it's one thing for the governor to say their target is from 6 to 3%. They have not been able to achieve that because food inflation is that much higher. Currency volatility is the enemy. And one thing that is very, for me, astounding is this. When ESCOM and most of our SOEs were engaging in these capital expenditure programs, which included importation of capital equipment, that is when the currency collapsed. And hence we've seen cost overruns in terms of these SOEs. And the Reserve Bank was not there to assist. So why do we need this Reserve Bank? This governor and this team of people he has, they must go. The quicker they go, the better for all of us.
All right, we're going to leave it there. I'm sorry. Don't kill it 2 minutes. Oh, it's finished. You know?
He makes a lot of sense, by the way.
He does. No, he's got his uses. Thanks so much, gentlemen, for coming in.
Thank you.
That's Tsepo Khadima, political analyst, Zamo Madlala, spokesperson for Black Empowerment Foundation, Adil Nchabileng, Transform RSA president, and Michael Dor, a Reserve Bank shareholder, speaking to us via Skype all the way from Germany. We'll take a quick ad break. We'll see you shortly.